Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe if you love watching bookish videos. I can't believe it's November and time for the Nonfiction November Challenge. This is an initiative started by Olive from a book Olive. She started it 9 years ago, where she basically gathered book lovers and encouraged people to read more nonfiction in the month of November. This reading challenge is open to anybody and you can participate in it in any way or form you want. So for people who usually do not read nonfiction at all, it is encouraged to read one book in the month of November. Or if you're already reading nonfiction, then you could challenge yourself to only reading nonfiction or more nonfiction. Crazy to say that this is the last time that Olive is going to host this challenge herself. So first of all, huge thank you to Olive for creating this beautiful challenge that encourages readers around the world to celebrate this genre. And I'm looking forward to how this challenge is going to evolve in the coming years. Olive usually throws an extra challenge in there where she gives us 4 words, so 4 prompts that we can try to fulfill with whatever we're reading. And every year it's 4 new words, and the 4 words for this year are code, path, shot, and join. They're very broad words that can be interpreted in many different ways, and some people like to find books based on these prompts. What I like to do is I take whatever I already own from my bookshelf, so this is for me also a great excuse to read what I already have, and I kind of make them fit into these prompts. So let's look at my pile of possibilities. I totally copied this phrase from Kimmerer from Hasteyebooks because I don't think it's quite realistic for me to go through all of these books, but when I was pulling them out of my shelf, I was excited about all of them, so I'm gonna try to read as much as I can from these books. Let's start with the word join. The first book that I associate with this word is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. The tagline is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. And this tagline pretty much represents why I chose the word join, because this joins Indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teaching of plants. Robin Wall Kimmerer is an Indigenous author who is a botanist and also a professor, and this is not the first book that I read by this author. I read Gathering Moss 2 years ago, which I found really fantastic, and then when I was talking about that book, a lot of you guys actually recommended reading Braiding Sweetgrass to me. I was super excited when I found this book at a garage sale this summer for I think something like $4. This book speaks about an awakening of a wider ecological consciousness. I am very excited to get into this one. My second book for the word join is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. My sister's boyfriend gave this book to me as a gift. He read it himself and he was saying that he was so positively surprised by how relatable it is. So this is obviously a very old book, right? So this was a journal that was never meant to be published until somebody found it and decided to share it with the world. And he was saying that, yeah, it was very interesting how he could relate to Marcus Aurelius when, for example, he was saying that he's tired of work and he's dreaming of going on vacation. I mean, how relatable is that? This book was written in Greek by the only Roman emperor who was also a philosopher. For me, this collection fits into join because it is about personal reflection, consolation, encouragement, and him trying to understand himself. So for me, that is a form of joining all of that within yourself. And now that I think about it, the fact that this is a collection of different entries put together in one book, that makes it a perfect pick for the word join as well. For the next prompt, shot, I went into a more literal sense, shot meaning like a gunshot. So I chose The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi. The tagline is A History of Settler Colonialism and Resistance from 1917 to 2017. Needless to say, absolutely relevant. I want to learn more about what is happening, about the genocide, about the motivations, and just the history behind it, because I am not very well versed in world history, so it is high time for me to pick up this book. I've only heard really good things from you guys who read this piece of nonfiction, so that's why I really wanted to have this on my TBR. For the prompt, path, I have 2 books. The first one is Mariquita Revisited by Perez Howard. This is a book that my sister bought for me in Guam when she was over there. This was published in 1982, and this is about this woman's experience during World War II as a Chamorro, so being part of the indigenous people of Guam. The cool thing is that Perez Howard is the son of Mariquita, so he is retelling his mother's life. I've never read a book that was published in Guam before, and I know really nothing about the Chamorro history, so once again this is going to be, I think, very enlightening. Plus, this is not going to be just a Nonfiction November contribution, but also contribution to my project of reading across all the continents. The second book for Path is in a more literal sense. So it's Wild by Cheryl Strayed, from Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail. You have probably heard of this book before, or of the movie adaptation with Reese Witherspoon. It's about a woman finding herself on the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a very, very long hiking trail that I think goes from all the way to Mexico or the border to Canada. I in fact started Nonfiction November by reading this book, so I'm about 70 pages in and I'm really enjoying it so far. I was extra excited for this book because for last year's Nonfiction November I read I'm Off by Hape Kerkeling, which is about a comedian's journey on the Camino de Santiago. So also a long hike with a person trying to find themselves, and this is kind of in the same vein. And I'm finding that I really like those kind of books, you know, like Eat, Pray, Lovey. This book is about the author Cheryl Strayed hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and at the beginning of the book she's going through a lot of grief, and she does this journey to find herself, her way back to her old self. This is what she's trying to accomplish. So in a way, Path also stands for that. Lastly, for the prompt code, I coincidentally have two books that I got in Germany. One of them is translated into English, so you can read it as well. The other one is unfortunately not, because it also just came out. I'm going to start with the one that just came out in German. It's Mythos, Mutterinstinkt, so that translates to The Myth of the Mother Instinct by Annika Rösler and Evelyn Höregel-Scheigner. The tagline translated is how modern brain research is liberating us from traditional roles and lets us rethink parenthood. I found this book on Instagram this summer. It was a post by the author explaining how this concept of the mother instinct is technically not based on any scientific facts. So this is something invented to put women in their traditional place in the household. One of the top comments was a comment from a man mansplaining something back to the author who created the post, and I saw the answer saying, I wrote this book, I did the research. I thought that, and also just the topic in itself is so interesting, so I wanted to pick this book up. I also love the cover design of this, by the way. And the reason I put it into code is because in a way, this mother instinct, traditional roles within the household, that to me is part of like an unwritten code of conduct almost, something that society has been following for I don't know how many years. Lastly, also for code, I have this book here by Alice Hasters. It's What White People Don't Want to Hear But Should Know. In German, the title is more along the lines of what white people don't want to hear about racism but should know, and that is exactly what this book is about. I'm only about 15 pages in. I started it last night and I already have so many sentences that I have underlined because I was like, wow, she's putting what I'm thinking into words that I usually have a hard time finding, which is one of the reasons why I'm reading this book. Sometimes you know things are wrong, but you cannot always put it into words. You don't necessarily, or I don't necessarily have the vocabulary for it. So that's why I wanted to read this. I already wish that they would make this book mandatory in all schools in Germany, because everybody can benefit from educating themselves about how racism takes place in your day-to-day life. The reason why I matched this book with the prompt code is because I was reading the description of the book, and one of the things that the author mentions is that a phrase that you will often hear in Germany is, oh, well, there's nothing you can even say anymore, or you can't even make jokes about anything anymore. A lot of people are uneducated about this topic. That could be me included, honestly. think that there's some kind of code now around kind of tiptoeing around the topic of racism instead of actually trying to understand it. Alice Hasters is a Black woman who is German, so she's writing it specifically from her perspective. I already have a feeling that this is going to be a 5-star read. That was all the books for my nonfiction November pile of possibilities. I am very excited about each and every one of these books, and if you're still looking for inspiration, I hope that one of these piqued your interest. Please let me know in the comments if you're also participating in Nonfiction November and which book you're most excited about reading. If you don't want to comment anything but just want to let me know that you made it to this part of the video, why don't you leave me a shoe emoji? Thank you so much for watching. Happy Nonfiction November. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.